Hey guys, Malzo here. I just wanted to take a couple minutes to kind of go over the videos I made for the Supeg Zero interview. I know it's been like 2 months, but I kind of realized, in those videos I never really gave my opinion on it. I just kind of straight up said or presented what was said in the emails between me and him. And I couldn't believe the amount of fucking comments I got saying that wasn't Supeg Zero. Anyways, for all the fucking internet detectives out there, obviously it was me talking to myself in the video, and I was reading out emails that I exchanged with Supeg Zero. I know a lot of people realize that, but the amount of comments I got contrary to that was unreal. Anyways, I just wanted to go and make a video to kind of talk about the questions that were answered and how much weight I put in them a little bit. When you're talking to somebody like Supeg Zero, you can't take everything at face value, right? Because he may have a motive to hide information or not disclose information. I don't think, before I did the interview, I read through his post history on some accounts that I could find for him. Like, he has an account on Hackforum, so I read through his post history and that, just to get an idea of who he was. And I didn't get the vibe. I never got the vibe that he was just a straight up troll or anything. Like, all his comments were pretty nice. He was seemed like a pretty normal guy, not trolling everybody on the internet with every comment he makes. So before I emailed him, I kind of had a bit of an idea in my head that he seemed like a genuine person, and I didn't think all the information that I would get back would necessarily be 100% true, but I thought it would be genuine answers, and that's exactly what I got. If you ever looked at the logs that I released, you could see like the answers that he put forward were very well detailed, and he really did go into a lot more depth than I thought he would. I thought he was going to be a lot more vague than he ended up being. However, you really do have to stay skeptical when you're talking to somebody like that. Even the cheating scene in general, like just trying to go and get ESCA cheats. People talk about getting scammed for shit like that all the time on the cheating forums and stuff like that. For guys that are looking for ESCA cheats, they always bring up, make sure you don't get scammed. Lots of scammers out there. It's just it's a difficult scene to maneuver in, and I kind of expected his answers to be difficult to kind of deduce, something like how much of it was true, or if there was any bullshit, or if there was another angle. And like I said, he seemed like a genuine guy. I know a lot of guys in the comments thought that he may, he's just straight up lying, or why would he release all this information? Well, first of all, he didn't really release that much information. It was a lot of it was theories and stuff. He told some stuff about like a web-based wall hack, which actually publicly got released. Not Supeg Zero doing it, but another guy just made a public free version of a fucking web-based wall hack that you don't have to install anything on your computer. Apparently, you just fucking load up this web page and it runs through Silverlight, Microsoft Silverlight, and no hook into the game or no programs running on your computer, and it's all fucking web-based. So anyways, when Supeg Zero was talking about a web-based wall hack, that was obviously true because it just fucking got released by someone else. But I just wanted to go through the questions, kind of give my thoughts on it. First off, I started straight up. I said, are tier 1 players cheating in CSGO? And he basically answered yes, which I expected. I didn't really expect him to give detail on player names or anything like that. In terms of like a relationship between coders and stuff like that, I don't think it's realistic to think that, I'm sure Supeg Zero has friends that code cheats as well. But even if he's good friends with them and the other people are making cheats for pros, I don't think they would necessarily tell Supeg Zero the name of them. And whether Supeg Zero's actively making cheats for players right now or not, I really did not expect him to say that either. So the answer I got back was kind of expected, and I don't think it's a very big leap to think that a guy that used to code cheats for pro level CS, for him just to say, yeah, there's cheating in the pro scene, I think that's a pretty reasonable answer. I don't think it was layered in bullshit or anything. But yeah, I didn't expect him to give up specific names saying, yeah, my buddy that fucking codes LAN cheats, he said whatever, this guy's had it. Like, I didn't expect that or anything. After that, I asked him basically the cost of tier 1 land cheats, because it's been something that's been speculated in our scene a lot, and people kind of throwing around numbers, and nobody's really dug in to kind of figure out what it was. And the answer I got back from SupX0 made a lot of sense, basically saying that the cheats aren't too different between amateurs and pro players. You know, they're not that crazy in terms of the difference between them, but the coder's definitely going to want a piece of that pie if it's a successful pro gamer. And that makes sense. You know, it's a lot more like high leverage, a lot more high stakes. You know, it's a more high stakes game you're playing when you're supplying for a pro player, and you're going to need like if I was a coder, you know, I would support my pro player. You know, I'd be working really hard to keep that pro player happy and stuff like that. And maybe not as much for the amateur player, right? So just the support to back that pro player is going to be more expensive. So basically the answer I got from him was that they're going to want a piece of the prize money, and maybe you know, maybe a big upfront cost depending on how much the player makes and stuff like that. And it makes sense to say that the cost of cheats have risen probably equally with the amount of money that players are making these days. You know, back in the day when he said he used to make land cheats, they used to be $1,000 or whatever. Well, now players, instead of making only their prize money, or, you know, like making $1,000 a month, now they're making like $9,000 a month, $10,000. It makes a lot of sense that the price of the cheat would go up. So I think that was another really reasonable answer, and probably relatively true, or something that's very believable. And I don't think he was bullshitting with that one either. I asked him if he was currently providing cheats to pro players, and to no one's surprise, he said he wasn't going to answer that. Which, you know, even if whether he was or wasn't, either answer, he's not going to want to divulge that type of information. But I figured it wouldn't hurt for me to ask, so I did. I also asked him if players were still using aim keys, because there's a lot of talk in our community about you know, there's other things you could use like Sound ESP, stuff like that, and or just a low FOV aimbot. And yeah, those things you wouldn't be able to detect as easily in a demo review for sure. But the aim key is stronger, right? Like, it's if you're in a gunfight, are you gonna want to have a fucking button you press that just full on aimbots you to the guy, you know, or are you gonna want just a low FOV aimbot? So it's definitely still more powerful than like a low FOV aimbot or Sound ESP in terms of when you get into gunfights. Now you can use a combination of a VizCheck aim, like a VizCheck aim key, so it's not gonna go to people that are behind walls, and then use Sound ESP just to find where people are. You could do that and then still kind of have the strength of the aim key. But he seemed to think that you know, it's possible that people are still using aim keys to find people through walls and get information that way. And I agree, you know, like it's speculation from me and from him, right? Like, we're just speculating that that's kind of what's being used, and just judging, you know, he watches pro players and I watch pro players, and every once in a while it's like, whoa, that kind of looked like an aim key. Like Stewie2K is a pretty good example. He definitely, it's like every demo you watched that seemed like something was happening. Rush had a few pretty weird demos too. So I think it's possible that people are still using it, and I'm not surprised that he kind of fell with the same opinion a little bit, you know. And next, I talked to him about just the distance limitations for aim locks, and that was pretty insightful. How, you know, he mentioned that even if they don't transmit the exact location of a player because they're dormant, well, if that player shoots or makes noise, that has to be transmitted across the server, right? So maybe just a general idea of information can be sent, you know, like if there is some way to send that information, the sound information, even if you're really far, you know, like if it gets sent server wide, but if you're just across the map, you can't hear it, maybe you can still use that information if you're cheating. I'm not 100% sure, but it might be something that's a little bit more advanced than your typical public cheats. But he's, you know, he basically just said to keep in mind that if there's sound happening or something like that, it might be possible to manipulate that into a form of cheat, right? Even if the person is really far away and dormant, you may not be able to fucking aim lock exactly on them, but maybe you have some other way of of locating that player, right? So I asked him about getting cheats into lands and if people would use bad USB. And this was kind of like, this is one of those things that I kind of regard Subek Zero as maybe I don't know if I want to say specialist or what, but he seems to be pretty focused on getting the cheats into lands, right? Like, there's a million fucking coders out there. There's a million guys that make cheats, and I think the hard part is probably getting it into the LAN rather than coding the cheat, right? So I asked him if he used if people use bad USB. Like I didn't expect much from this answer, and when I heard this answer from him, I'm not sure how much weight to put in what he said or how believable it is. So, you know, like if every fucking pro is using bad USB, I would expect him to come back and say, no, nobody's using bad USB, you know? So I really took his answer with a grain of salt. And so he did come back and say that he doesn't think people are using bad USB, or very few people. And he also mentioned that there's just easier ways to get cheats into lands. Of course, he didn't mention exactly what he meant by that, but he did mention an old method he used, which I thought was pretty interesting. Just replicating, like say the Logitech website. Instead of logitech.com, he would have his player log on to logitech.org and then just follow the clicks. The website would look 100% identical, and then they would just follow the clicks along to get the drivers. I'm doing air quotes, but get the drivers, which would also have the special package kind of in the installer, and that would install the cheats. So there are certainly creative ways, like the workshop method, that still fucking blows my mind that was a vulnerability with Valve. You know, all the player had to do was log into their Steam, the workshop stuff would automatically get put on, and then within the fucking map there was some cheat that would get executed or exploited through the map. Like, that's just insane. So I didn't expect him to tell me any crazy new methods that would work today, and I would hope that website method wouldn't work at very many lands anymore, but hey, you never fucking know. Some lands definitely give you a lot more freedom than others. Probably one of the more controversial answers that I got from him, or at least one of the answers that when I heard him say it, I'm like, whoa, I feel like I'm getting fed something, you know, or fed information. When I asked him if tier 1 players approach him asking for cheating software, and he said that some Brazilian team asked him in 2015, I think it was, and he said no, but he wishes he said yes, and he's kind of hinting a little bit that it might have been Immortals or SK, likely SK. I don't know, it felt like an answer that I wanted to hear a little bit too much, you know? So when I heard that, I really didn't know what to think. Like how he mentions that he didn't get, like, the team was completely anonymous, so he didn't know any of the players' names, but he knew that they were from Brazil. So I was thinking, well, how do you know they're from Brazil if you don't have any of their names? So maybe it's possible he got them in a Skype call and then was able to get their IP, and you could look up their IP and get a general idea of where they are, and it might have went back to Brazil. That's certainly possible, but I don't know. It's still really really weird, because it really just felt like him feeding into my confirmation bias a little bit, you know, by saying that it was a Brazilian team. And, you know, like, Brazilians are getting accused, like they were accused constantly as they came. You know, they were a mid-tier NA team that exploded onto the scene and got a ton of accusations against them. So it was really tough to decipher how much to believe that answer. So he could be totally honest about it, but I don't know. I'm really critical of everything that he kind of said back to me, and this is just one of those things, you know, when I put it under a bit of scrutiny, it's like, well, I'm not sure what to think of that, and I definitely don't take it as fucking gospel or anything. It definitely could be fed information. One of the other things too that worried me a little bit when he said, like, he just mentioned that he to this day knows how to get cheats into LAN events. It seemed like almost a a promotion a little bit, or like like he said that like he wanted to get word out a little bit that, hey, everybody out there, I know how to get cheats into lands, hit me up or whatever. But I kind of thought about it a little more afterwards, and I'm not sure using my channel is the best method of doing that. Like, he has a Twitter account, he could have just tweeted that and that would have accomplished the same thing. Or he could have, like he could have made a post in fucking hack forums or whatever, saying he knows how to get cheats in. Like, I don't know if my YouTube channel is the best method to promote out to a wide array of people that I know how to get cheats into tier 1 events or something. But when he said it at first, I'm like, whoa, I don't know if I want to put that in the video, because it sounds like he's kind of promoting his own skill a little bit, or putting the word out there. If anybody wants to get into contact with him, he's the guy, so I'm not too sure what to think about that either. The last thing I talked to him about was just his thoughts on the major, if he thought it was clean or not, and he seemed like he thought it was relatively clean. He had a few suspicions on a couple different players, but didn't seem like anything too huge. So yeah, it was just a question I wanted to ask to kind of approach from another angle. Like the first question I asked was, do you think tier 1 players are cheating? And then the last question I asked, saying what were your thoughts on the major, was kind of like that same question, just from a different angle, to see what his thoughts on it were. And he did mention a couple players' names that he thought were suspicious. He seemed suspicious of Pasha, just because of his movement and crosshair placement, which admittedly are dog shit. He's like, Pasha's not the only pro player with terrible crosshair placement. Simple's another one, but I mean, Simple's been banned in the past, so he's not really a good example to compare to. But it is weird to have a pro player that has 4, 5, 6,000 hours, and then they just have terrible crosshair placement and terrible movement. So it's certainly something that would catch my eye as well. So that was pretty much the extent of the conversation, though. I think the most important thing, though, is to, all the answers that he provides, don't take them as, this is 100% true. You really do have to be critical and put on your own level of critical thinking that you think, how much of it is true or how much of it isn't. Like I said, before I emailed him all those questions, I did read through his post history on like some forums and stuff like that, and he really did seem like a genuine guy. That's kind of why I wanted to talk to him. So I think there is, I imagine just a guy, doing this as a side job or a side hobby, whatever, to make some money. And I'm sure he's got a day-to-day job or a fucking day job just like everybody else. And he's probably just a normal guy. Normal people don't just blatantly lie for fucking, like, I'm sure he must have spent at least 4 hours replying to those emails. Like, it was quite a long email chain. I don't think, like, who the fuck types out for like 4 hours just to lie about everything, right? So I think the vast majority of it is pretty insightful and genuine, and it might be sprinkled with some stuff that he might have wanted to put out there or something, or I don't know. But I think overall, I would say it's still really good information, and it definitely it helps spread the message and educate people a little bit more on kind of what's possible in the cheating world, especially coming from a guy like him. Like, if I make a video saying what's possible in the cheating world, I really don't have any credibility in that, and I don't really have the voice or the background to start making videos about that. But when you talk to somebody like Supeg0, he's definitely well known and the only cheat provider to be confirmed providing for pros, right? So he was definitely a good guy to talk to. Anyways, guys, I got a really big project video that I'm working on right now, so that's why I just kind of put out this vlog or blog, audio log, a log. Anyways, so I didn't spend a ton of time on this video or anything, but I got a really big one coming. It's not cheating related, but I think most people will like it, and I'm hoping it'll be a big one. Anyways, I'll let you guys go. I'll see you next time. See ya.